Your world is waiting, but first you have to access it. Welcome to the Joshua Roy Show. We don't do fluff, we do freedom. Real talk on mindset, cutting edge coaching techniques, and the hidden frameworks for lasting change. If you're ready to move from being stuck to becoming the architect of your life, you're ready for this. Hit subscribe. Let's get to work. I'd like to welcome you to today's episode. Today we're going to be going back to a group coaching session that I ran. Now, I run these coaching sessions, somewhere between 3 and 5 of them every single month for my coaching clients. And it's a great way for me to reconnect with them to connect with me, ask questions, and we go through some coaching problems and solutions together. So the idea is, being a coach, you need to be prepared for any and every question that comes your way. You need to be ready to answer and have a good answer, one that's going to help people to shift and change and move out of their stuck state towards a growth mindset. And so what we've got now is a part of a session that happened earlier this year. So sit back, enjoy, and I hope you get some great benefit from listening into this group coaching and mentoring and integration session. That I was going to go on a personal development journey for myself. I was going to connect my mind with my heart through incantations, through meditation, through exercise and other processes, cold water exposure, breathing exercise. I did the whole bit. I had this morning routine that was very comprehensive, and you can find that out. And there's one of the seminar links that I've got that actually links up to that, was there's a morning routine that you can look at and see that. And that's a free thing. So I do that. I share that with everybody. Knowledge is not about information. It's about application. It really is. We've got to make sure that we're doing the work. Personal development is in doing. It's not about listening or learning. It's about doing it. You don't know it unless you do it. And it's the same thing with the tools of coaching. The biggest benefit I've found in the coaching world is when I started to coach people one-on-one, even in groups like this, and I'm teaching people a concept, and then we get it into their body, and that has had a huge impact on me, watching people transform literally before my eyes, like seeing people who were disempowered turn around and within a split second almost, seemingly, become empowered, just feel like there's more possible for them. And I love that process of change. And then they say that they get more motivation, they feel happier. People come along to my free webinars all the time, and they say that they're just so much more positive. They're just happier afterwards. They feel lighter. It's as if something has changed within them. So I appreciate that. And I thank Gordon for sharing that information. In fact, Gordon said to me on the phone, he said that it's just great having a mentor. The words that he used was something like having a mentor that's so positive. He says, you're just so positive. And it's great having that positivity coming into my life. And so thank you, Gordon, once again. All right, if there's no more hands raised and no more shares, let's move straight into the next segment of today. And this is the segment that's going to be run by you. So you've got a question about something. How do you deal with anger? That was Gordon's question. Could I talk on that? Actually, let's start there, and then I'm going to open it up to questions for the rest of the group. So let's start with the idea of anger. Now, anger is an emotion, and it's a very strong emotion. It can be almost an overwhelming emotion. And when it comes to anger, instead of trying to deal with the anger in the here and now, which is what most people do, most people think to themselves, I just don't want to get angry. I've got to control my anger. And so they start planning to resolve the issue in the present. But like with most things in life, the anger didn't start in the present. You didn't just wake up angry one day and suddenly you're an angry person. Anger, like other emotions, was experienced when you were young. And so what we tend to do is we live out our life as a replay of our past experiences, thoughts, and feelings. And so instead of, and this is what happens when people go to a job, You might go and work in a job or a career for 20 years, and people say they have 20 years experience in the job. What most people really have is 1 year experience repeated 20 times. Our life becomes a repeat of what we've experienced in the past. And so if anger is an issue in the here and now, we've got to start looking to the past. We've got to go and do some timeline work. And so what I'd recommend is when we look at our timeline, we've got the future, which stretches off in one direction, and the past that stretches off in another. And so I would say, let's go here for the past. Let's go here for the future. That's our timeline. From the past into the future. This is the now. When it comes to anger, what I'd be looking at doing is going back to the first 2 or 3 incidents of anger in your life. So when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, what I'll do is I'll draw up a timeline. I'll say, here's the timeline. Okay, you're 0 years there. You're 5 years here. You're 10 there. 15, 20, and so on and so forth. And what I want to do is I want to find and pinpoint the exact times in your life where the anger has probably been to a level 8 or above. So if we think of an emotion as being 0 to 10 in intensity and 0 to 10 in duration, we're looking for high intensity and long duration. So if you're angry for a period of time, it could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour of anger, that's a long duration, okay? That's a long time to maintain any emotion, is for a period of time. Some people can maintain it for several hours and even go on beyond days, okay? And they maintain that emotion. Now we know an emotion maintained becomes a mood turns to a temperament, and a temperament can turn to a disposition. And so what we want to do is we want to look at the duration of the anger and also the intensity of the anger. Now, if we can pinpoint, let's say something happened when you were 5 years of age and there was an outburst of anger. Something happened when you were 10, something happened when you were 15. What you want to do is write those out. So you want to remind yourself of what the story is. Now, you're not wanting to revisit the story and get back into the emotion, but you want to logically understand, well, what was going on at the time? Why was I feeling those emotions? Ask yourself some questions about it. Then what we do is we use a technique called the Space Odyssey Technique. And this is a technique whereby we go back to the incident and we use disassociation techniques to create distance between ourselves and the emotion that we felt at the time. And I'll give you an example of that. So if you're in an emotion, you're feeling a level 8 of anger, maybe something's happened in the home. Maybe there's a fight. Mum and dad are having an argument. Something like, you're only 5 years old, you're a little child, you don't know what's happening. But there's this anger building up inside. There's fear as well of what's going on. But angry, fearful person. So maybe you're focused on the anger for this exercise and you say, so I was angry at that time. Or maybe you're at school and someone took something from you and it was yours and you became really angry over it and you wanted to belt them for some reason, okay, because it's your item. Okay, so it could have even been when you were 4 or 3 years old and it was a toy, anything like that. So here you've got some angry outbursts that are occurring in your life. There's some anger going on. So with Space Odyssey, what I do is I get people to go into the scene or the incident, first of all, and experience the anger. Then what we want to do is we want to dissociate from it. So that's where I take them up into the sky, maybe at the level of the, you could say the outer atmosphere, and we look down on the scene to see if that's shifted it. Then we go out to Pluto. Now, there's been arguments whether Pluto's a planet or a mass of some other type. But anyway, you go to Pluto and you look back at the Earth from Pluto, and now Earth is just a little tiny dot in the distance. And then you notice if that changes the feeling. And then we take it to the other side of the universe, where you go all the way out, past all the solar systems up there in the universe, whatever they're called, past other galaxies, all the way to the other side of the universe. You know, if you think about Stargate or any of those sort of TV shows, Anyone who's into sci-fi, you just imagine yourself like Farscape on the other side of the universe. You've been shot through a wormhole and suddenly you wound up in the other. And you look back on Earth, and in fact, the whole galaxy is just a little tiny dot in the distance. And what I do is I ask people, now from that position or vantage point, how do you feel? And I want to keep going further and further away until a person gets to zero. So a person will say, when I'm in the scene, I'm feeling 8 of anger. I've still got that feeling in my body. But now that I'm in the middle of space, looking back, this is Space Odyssey, what it's all about, it's a 0. I don't feel anything because I'm so far away from it. I'm so far removed from that situation. Like it's a long time ago and it's a long distance away. So time and space has created the situation where we can completely let go. And there's no more anger around that situation. Now, once you've absolved that, then the anger's gone. And then what I do is I get people to look at the learnings. Like, what are the learnings you got? Let's look at the learnings. The learnings, sound, the color, the feeling in your body. What is the sound? What is the color? What is the feeling? And then we work that out. You go back into the scene and the anger's gone. And you're like, whoa, this is amazing. And then we continue doing that for every incident. So if you had 2 or 3, that's fine. And the earlier ones are really powerful. But then you can go through another 6 or 8 as you grow up. One when you're 20, 22, 26, maybe went through a separation, a relationship, you got so angry, different things that happen. Maybe you got rejected by a parent for some reason. Now there's anger there. All of these incidents in your life, you can go back to each of them and you can revisit them, equilibrate the negative emotion, let go of it, and find yourself just in a neutral place. So you could be in the memory, you could think about it, not feel bad. And I love that. When you get to that point and you start thinking about something traumatic that happened, but you don't feel any negative feelings in your body. Have you experienced that? I know Rachel has. Rachel's a healer, and Rachel teaches people how to do this, not using Space Odyssey, but other processes. Now, Gordon, here's what I want you to do. If you can just unmute yourself for a moment. I want you to think about one of those first incidences when you were very young and you felt anger in your body. Can you tell me just briefly, maybe in just 1 or 2 sentences, what was happening, how old you were, and the level of anger you felt, both intensity and duration?
I would have to say I was 10 years old. My parents were fighting. My dad was drinking, and my mother was just trying to get him to stop drinking by screaming back at him. I don't know that I felt angry as much as I was in the presence of anger, but I was definitely afraid.
Right. I like what you're saying there. You didn't necessarily feel anger, but you're in the presence of anger. Think of your brain when you're young. It's very malleable, very changeable. And so when you're in the presence of anger, anger can start becoming a response that you take on because you're around it. It becomes a go-to for yourself. So that's a great insight right there. So Gordon, I want you to go back to that scene and I want you to tell me from that scene and go into the scene as if you're right there watching the fight happening right now, the feelings in your body and the anger of that situation. Now, this might not have been a direct feeling that you had, that you created anger in your body, but the feeling of anger, how much was it? 0 is there was no anger. 10 is extreme anger. Where would you say it was?
Probably an 8 with the fighting.
Okay, so an 8. So that's perfect, what we want. Remember, we're looking for incidents between 8 and 10, and an 8 with the fighting. And how long did that last for? How long was the fight? How long was the feeling that you had about that situation?
Maybe an hour. It
Okay,
was
and that's
continuous. It'd be a couple days later, and then a couple days later, it would very reoccurring.
right. So that's a long period of time. Like to hold any emotion for an hour is an incredibly skillful thing. Like if you think about any emotion you felt, you try and hold it for an hour. It's really hard. Like if you felt joy, happiness, and you said, right, I'm going to be happy for a whole hour, that's a fairly long time to be happy for, or be excited. You might jump up and down and get excited for a moment, but if you do it for a whole hour, it's a long time to hold one specific emotion, long time. All right, so let's go and have a look at this. So what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes for a moment, and I want imagine that you're in a safety bubble. You're in this safety bubble. Nothing can harm you. Nothing can hurt you. Think of it like you could say like a balloon, and you're inside the balloon. The balloon might be filled with liquid or some space, but you're completely safe in there, inside that bubble. Nothing can penetrate and get to you. You're completely safe. Now, I want you to go back to that scene where you were 10, and I want yourself to put yourself back in that scene right now. And I want you to know that while that anger is all there in that scene, nothing can harm you. You're completely safe. So the intensity of the anger you're suggesting is about an 8. I want you to imagine that and just see what's happening in that scene. And it can't harm you, but get a sense of the feeling that you've got inside your body as you replay that scene. All right, now what I want you to do, sorry, you got something to say?
No, go ahead.
What I want you to do now is with your eyes closed, so close them again. What I want you to do now is imagine going up into the sky. Just imagine yourself from the scene of that anger, you zoom up into the sky and you're up where the satellites circulate the planet, up near the outer atmosphere of the planet, of the Earth. And I want you to look down from that vantage point and imagine that your house is just a little tiny dot in the distance from all the way up in the sky. And I want you to tell me that feeling of anger that existed in that situation, how much do you feel it now from that vantage point, from that angle, from way up high in the sky? Just give me a number of 0 to 10.
4, because I feel
Okay,
very
now,
safe.
yep. So now go all the way out to Pluto, which has been suggested as the furthest planet from our sun in our solar system. So go to Pluto, look back, and Earth is just a little tiny dot in the distance, the whole planet. Tell me, how do you feel from that vantage point? 0 to 10. How much anger around that situation?
Is 0, and the feeling is relief that it's gone, it's done, I'm not carrying it.
Right. Right. I want you to go out even further. I know it's 0, but let's imagine you put yourself on the other side of the universe. And so our whole solar system is just a dot. Just imagine that. And looking from that vantage point, how does that feel?
Like it doesn't matter. My life has gone on.
All right. Now, here's the thing we want you to do. I want you to imagine that there's a color associated to your learnings. So what we're going to focus on now is what you learnt, what you learnt about life growing up. What are the positive learnings for yourself and for your life? So name for me something positive about that you learn about yourself, about life from that situation.
That I could survive and then go on to
Yes.
thrive. It's very resilient.
I can survive, I can go on to thrive, and I'm very resilient. Wonderful. Now, if there's a color that represented that, what color would it be?
The positive would be green.
Great. Now, what I want you to do is imagine a big cloud of green energy above your head. Just imagine there's a big green cloud, and I want you to start breathing it into your lungs. Just imagine breathing that in and filling up your lungs, and you'll notice your lungs are connected to your respiratory system. It's connected to the circulatory system because oxygen goes into your bloodstream. So imagine now that green energy moving all throughout the veins, the arteries of your body, all throughout your circulatory system. And the blood is the river of your life. And what the bloodstream does is it services every single cell in your body. All 70 to 100 trillion cells all throughout your body are all serviced by your circulatory system. So imagine now that green energy moving into every cell of your body. So just imagine that. All right, now if those learnings of you being resilient, you surviving and moving on to thrive, if that made a sound, Gordon, what sound would it make?
Just a deep sigh of relief.
Okay, great. Now hear that sigh of relief. Hear a loud sigh of relief. You don't have to do it or make the sound. You can just imagine hearing it. But imagine that it's very loud coming
Oh,
through a speaker. Yeah, gotcha. Now, the next thing I want you to do, if there was a feeling associated with you thriving, you being resilient, you're not just surviving but thriving, what feeling would it be? What emotion?
proud, but not arrogant.
Right.
Strong.
Proud and strong. Great. So I want you to get that feeling of proud and strong and just flood your body with it. Do whatever you need to do. Move in any way you need to move. Maybe you want to sit up more erect. Maybe you want to push your chest out a little bit. Anything you need to do to bring more pride into your body, more strength into your soul, into your spirit. So here's what I want you to do now. I want you to carry that feeling with you. And we're going to go back into that incident. We're going to go back into that scene where mum and dad were yelling. You're 10 years of age. But this time, what I want you to do is put on green glasses. You know how you can wear glasses and they've got a different colored tint and it turns everything that color? I want you to imagine looking at that scene now through green colored glasses. So everything's green. Dad's hair's green. Mum's clothes are green. The house is green. Everything around is green. Just turn everything green. Everything's green. And I want you to hear in the background a big sigh of relief, like it's coming through a big subwoofer speaker, a big loud sigh of relief. And I want you to get this feeling in your body of strength, a feeling of strength, a feeling of pride, not arrogance, but pride in yourself and that strength. Get that feeling in your body as you look around and just put a smile on your face. And tell me, Gordon, now that you've done that, tell me how much effect does this scene have on you? 0 to 10.
0. It's like
Perfect. All right.
going out and looking down from Pluto, and now it's a very physical sensation with breathing and feeling the energy going through my body. It's emotional first and then physical second.
Perfect. Open your eyes. Well done. That's it. So what we've done there is we've absolved anger from that situation. We've equilibrated it. So where there was anger, it's no longer there. So we can cross that off your list. You went back to the scene, felt zero amounts of, you could say, anger as a result of being there. And not anger within yourself, but anger from the situation itself. And because of that, that's now gone. And so what will happen is we've changed something in the past, in your childhood, that can now affect you in the present and in the future. And that's going to have a more powerful effect than going and doing, you could go and do anger management courses and programs, and they're very good. But what they focus on is the present. Well, what do you do when you get angry? Well, time out. You need to go for a walk. You need to breathe. You need to do, and they'll come up with strategies for the here and now. But what they're not doing is solving the challenge from the past. What we've done is we've worked with your unconscious or subconscious mind. We've rewired that situation so that you get a different result. Now, if I was working with you, Gordon, we could do that for all the incidents of anger. We go through 5 or 6 different ones. You can do it yourself. You go watch this recording and next time choose the one when you're 15. And then next time choose another one when you were 7. And then choose another one when you were 11 or 14. And you keep going until you get to a point where you just feel completely healed of anger. That you feel like, all right, there's nothing to get angry about. Isn't life great? How's that, Gordon? Does that make sense?
Yes, I very helpful for me, and hopefully it helps somebody else.
No worries. And that's just anger. So just so you're aware, the process of Space Odyssey works not just with anger, but it can work with any and every less than positive emotion. William's saying, what if the person still feels anger when they come back? Great question. So tell me, William, what would you do? Let's put on your coaching hat. You ask the question and say, okay, let's go back to the scene, put on those glasses, breathe that green energy through you, see, hear, feel what you feel that strength and resilience, all that. What would you do?
I don't know. That's why I asked.
It's a good question. Have a think about it. What do you think? What would you do?
I mean, you took Gordon farther, than zero, and he came back with a zero emotion. But like, I would say repeat it, but I'm not sure if that would work.
What was that?
Repeat distancing yourself. I said
Yeah.
repeat distancing yourself, but I'm not sure if that works.
Yeah. So what you could do is, so I'll give you a couple of things that you can do. One thing you can do is go out. You could double the distance. You say, okay, you're on the other side of the universe. Okay, now double the distance and keep doubling it till you get to a zero. I've said that to people. I got to a person on the other side of the universe, and they were still at a 1 or at a 2. And I said, well, keep doubling the distance between you and the planet Earth until you get to a point where it's 0. So that's one thing you can do, is you keep going. Another thing you do is, if you're in the scene, but there's still something happening, they're still feeling that emotion while they're in the scene, then you could put on thicker glasses. Then what you could do is you could play the music louder. Then what you could do is get more of the feeling in their body, that empowerment feeling. So for Gordon, it was the feeling of strength and pride. So you focus on those things. You see, when you focus on the positive emotions and you build them up, one of the quickest ways to push away less than positive emotions is have the positive emotions take their place. So I don't change course. I still use the same technique, but I just amplify it, crank it up. I look for the next level. Like, how could you make this double? How could you make this quadruple? You could either make the speaker bigger and make the sounds louder. You could make the feelings stronger in some way. You could get them to go to a happy memory or a time where they felt lots of pride and revisit that emotion, feel the emotion, then go back to the scene with that emotion. So there's many different ways that you could do it. There was one person who didn't like the Space Odyssey because there was a fear of open spaces. I don't know if you know about that. There's arachnophobia is fear of spiders, and claustrophobia is fear of small places. But there's another phobia that is fear of open spaces. It's another phobia. And so somebody had that. So when I tried to take them through this process, it didn't work for them. So I had to change gears and do a different process with them. That process was no good for that person because it was creating fear inside their body, fear of being out in space. Oh, I'm cold, I'm alone, I'm fearful, and I don't want to do that. If it's a negative emotion that it's conjuring up inside a person, I will shift and change to something else. It just so happened that Gordon was okay being out in space. It was peaceful. It was great. So perfect. You use that one. Yeah. So
I,
the person.
I really like. Hello.
Yeah. Go for it. Tell me.
I really like what you said about thicker glasses and bigger speakers, but how would you prompt somebody to boost their emotions and the feeling that those proud feelings? How would you prompt them?
How would you get them to experience or feel it? Is that what you're asking?
How to remember? Well, you work with three things: the color, the sound, and the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the color and sound, you said thicker glasses and bigger speakers, and that's easier to visualize. And so,
Yes.
what would your prompt be for, like, for strengthening the positive emotions? The
Yeah.
third,
So my
like
thing
the
with
third prompt.
the emotions is, well, for example, I could use the state elicitation script, which you're probably all aware of. Think about a time where you felt a certain emotion. Think about a specific time. Go back to that time. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel the feelings in your body. That's the state elicitation script. So I could use that. Or the other way you do it is through what's called pacing and leading. Those of you who've just done the communication course and those of you who attended that course will remember that when we're talking about awakened communication, we talked about the purpose of communication. What is the purpose of communication? Well, firstly, it's to build rapport. What is rapport? Well, rapport is a feeling of trust and responsiveness. How do we get rapport? Through matching and mirroring. Why do we want rapport? And the answer to why we want it is for pacing and leading. Now, pacing and leading can be that we lead them to think certain things, but also we're using pacing and leading to get them to feel certain things. So when I pace and lead somebody in a process, my goal is to build their energy and to lift their emotional state. That's my purpose. So when I go back to the purposes of life coaching, or the steps actually of coaching, number one step is to show up. Now, when I show up, I make sure that I have a high level of emotional flexibility. That's how I show up. I want to show up fairly positive. I want to be excited, happy. The next step, the second step, is to build rapport. And I've already talked about just then why we build rapport. The third one is to build energy. And the fourth step is to empower. And so that's a breakdown of what a coaching session actually is. So if you took away all the words out of a coaching session, you took away the things that we're actually discussing and doing, which is a whole nother level, and you just looked at the energy dynamic of the coaching session, you would see that I would show up, first of all. I'm empowered. I feel like I can do anything and I can help anybody change. So I'm empowered. Number one, show up. Number two, build rapport. Now what I want to do is build rapport with the other person. If they're depressed, I'm depressed. If they're feeling stuck, I'm feeling stuck. If they're feeling alone or lonely, I think about times where I've felt lonely and alone. And so what I'm doing is I'm building rapport with that person. I'm visiting their emotional states. So if I talk to someone and I did have a client for a long period of time, was absolutely depressed, really depressed. And I would start off the conversation, how are you going? How are things today? And my energy would be quite low and my words would reflect his words. Because I'm not going to come up to somebody who's depressed and be like, all excited. Hey, I'm here to build your energy. Let's get pumped. Because there's no rapport that. Somebody's depressed, somebody's excited. Now you're at crossheads. There's no ability to build that rapport with that person. The person's going to think you're weird or you're strange. There's something wrong with you. So what you do is I've got the emotional flexibility to go from excitement to depression and anywhere in between. Okay, so I go to where they're at. Then my job as a coach is to build their energy and then empower. And so to answer your question, William, I build the energy by building rapport, getting on side with the person, and then lifting that person through my words, through my own emotions, through what I'm feeling. And then as they're in that process with me, they start to hopefully start matching and mirroring that. We've all got mirror neurons within us, and those mirror neurons can take on the emotions that I'm sending, and that's going to help the person feel empowered. So that's how I do it. Now, if they're not getting it, then I go back and build more rapport. So if I'm not changing a person or a person isn't emotionally connecting, I just think to myself, I don't have enough rapport with the person. Salespeople think this way too. If I don't get a sale, it's because I didn't build enough rapport. So what do? We go back and build more rapport. we just keep building rapport. Rapport is the answer to most problems, most challenges. William, does that answer your question?
Yeah,
fantastic.
very much so. Thank you.
Very much. Good. That's great. All right, great question. So there you go, Gordon. So Gordon, feedback, is that helpful? Is that useful? And what have you learned?
It's very helpful. And part of what I've learned is that if for some reason it doesn't resolve, then I just keep going further and further and further and further. That gives me some control, if you will, over the incident. I'm taking responsibility for it. I'm also distancing myself from it. I like the idea of thicker glasses where it just filters everything. It puts a softer filter on it. So it's further away and it's not as intense. It's a different color. That was very powerful because if the first one doesn't work, then I just got to keep going further away. If the first one doesn't work, I got to get thicker, greener glasses. It's very concrete.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. You just keep going. You don't let it beat you. You say, you know what? You're not going to beat me. I'm in control and I'm going to take charge. And then that's what we do. And that's what I do as a coach. So as a coach, I think to myself, there's always a way. There's always a way. Like a person has a problem. I don't care what problem it is. You got a problem. There's a tool and some education to resolve the problem. We've just got to find it. That's what we're going to do. And so what I'll do is I'll do a process with somebody and they say, oh, I've got fear of, like I said, open spaces. I go, no worries. We'll go to a different process because there's many tools and there's many ways. If you come to an obstacle in your life and you feel like it's hopeless, well, that's the worst place you can ever get to. And never is there a situation where as a coach, I want to allow myself to feel hopeless. Like there's no point in doing it because you've just defeated yourself. So if you can get this one idea into your mind, there's always a way. There's always a way. There has to be a way. There has to be a solution. All right, welcome back. How was that? Did you learn something? Something about anger and something about coaching sessions that are run for the group, for individuals in the group, and getting real and lasting change during the session. So my goal, my desire is to integrate the information into my clients' minds, into their heart, so that they actually get change. And you'll also see there that I encouraged another member of the group to see if he could come up with a solution. You really want to stretch yourself and start seeing what you can do and what you're capable of. You see, your commitment to yourself should be to discover who you really are. Unlock your incredible self and unleash that on the world. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for spending some time with me and I look forward to seeing you at the next episode.